like this. Om Namah Shivaya. 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 And if you feel inspired, you can go Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. And back to Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Up. Om Namah Shivaya. 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 Very softly. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. One more time. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah.
Let's begin with a few minutes of sitting together in meditation. Allow yourself to find a position that's comfortable. Shouldn't be rigid, shouldn't be hard, but it should be awake. Should be a position where the breath can flow freely. And once you've found the position, stop moving. the mind is hard enough to keep it still. But if we can hold the physical body still, it gives us a good head start. Draw the awareness, the focus, from being focused on the world outside to the world inside. Draw it in. So when sounds come or sensations come or even thought patterns come, don't fight them off, but don't allow the awareness to hook itself into them. Just keep drawing the awareness back to the breath and allow the sounds or the thoughts or the sensations to just blow quickly across your awareness like wispy clouds blow across a blue sky on a windy day. And keep drawing the awareness back to the blue sky, back to the space between the thoughts, back to the breath. If you find that your mind wanders, you can add a simple mantra to it of so hum. You can chant silently to yourself on the inhalation, so. And on the exhalation, you can chant silently to yourself, hum. It means I am that. I am that to which I pray. I am that upon which I meditate. I am the universe. I am everything. I am that. So hum. So keeping the awareness on the breath. Notice how you're breathing, connecting to the world. So on the inhalations, we're bringing the outer into the inner. And on the exhalations, we're taking the inner into the outer. Allow them to happen as an unbroken cycle. Of inhalation and exhalation. An unbroken cycle of the outer to the inner, the inner to the outer, making sure to hold the body absolutely still. And as you breathe, as the awareness merges fully with that breath, notice how slowly, but very specifically, that border between inner and outer dissolves. That it's no longer breathing outer to inner or inner to outer. That suddenly there is no inner and there is no outer. There just is breath. Through the breath, allow that border to dissolve. Allow the breather and the breath to become one. Allow that awareness to merge so fully into the breath that there's nothing but breath. Slowly bring the palms to chest level and rub them gently against each other. Press the palms of your hands into your closed eyes. Lower the hands and open the eyes. Welcome to Satsang. So, if those of you sitting right by that door could come in, what it'll do is it'll just prevent, as people come in, it'll prevent them from having to climb on top of people, and then they can just go to a space in the back. When I meditate and have the feeling that I'm supposed to be doing something, I resist physically and spiritually. How do I overcome this resistance? When I meditate and have the feeling I'm supposed to do something, I resist physically and spiritually. How do I overcome this resistance? So first of all, it's actually good to resist doing something in meditation. So that's not a resistance to overcome. We are so indoctrinated to feel like we always have to be doing, producing, as though this moment itself were somehow lacking. And it's up to me to do something to improve this moment, to fix this moment. And so we bring that even into our meditation. I have to do something. Interestingly, the questioner feels resistant to doing that, which is great because meditation is actually, it's not about doing. It's about undoing. That which we do in meditation is just a technique. It's just a tool. So we watch the breath. We chant a mantra. We may recite a name. There's a lot of different techniques of meditation, but they're all tools. They're not the doing for doing's sake. It's not reciting God's name because God's up there going, when is somebody going to recite my name, please? It's not reciting God's name because somehow listening to his, her name makes God happy, and so God blesses you the more you take the name. It's not that. We take God's name for us. So the doing that we do in meditation is actually a tool to get us beyond this very limited way of thinking, this very limited way of being. We spend our time stuck in our minds. The mind's not bad. The mind's not our enemy. The mind is a wonderful tool. The problem is that we're at the mercy of it. If I sat here in front of you And as I was talking to you, I started flailing my arms all over the place like this. And I said, oh, don't worry about that. They're just my silly arms. Yeah, they do that sometimes. You'd think, there's something really, really wrong with this lady. And then if I started bouncing up and down on my legs, and I said, oh, don't worry. Yeah, they're just my silly legs. They do that sometimes. You'd think, really, there's something wrong with her. But interestingly, even though we understand so intuitively that our arms and our legs should be under our control, even we understand that our tongues should be under our control. We say something that we regret, we say, that wasn't me. So we understand that I should have the control. But my mind, this extraordinary, exquisite organ, limb, muscle, amazing creation thing, whatever we call it, that actually is the steering wheel for our life, that is that determining where we go, what we do, who we are, how we are. We just let it run all over the place. Oh yeah, that's just my silly mind. Can't control it. And so meditation pulls us out of that. Because the issue with the mind is, it can only function in separation. It can think about. As long as it can hold something at an arm's length and think about it. A math problem, a checkbook, my annoying neighbor, whether the colors in my living room match, whatever it may be. If I'm using my mind, I have to be able to hold what I'm thinking about at an arm's distance. I'm thinking about it. I'm judging it. I'm understanding it. I'm comparing it. I'm making lists of pros and cons. I'm deciding. But who we are isn't something you want to hold at an arm's length. When we do that, we end up suffering even more. That's the, you're stupid, you're worthless, you're nothing, you're fat, you're ugly, you're a failure, you're a victim. That's the thinking about ourselves. And of course it can go the other way. You're the best, you're the smartest, everybody else is an idiot, you're the only one who knows anything, you should be in charge, either way. But again, that's holding myself at an arm's length, full of course of all the illusions, but I'm not even going to talk about that now. But meditation actually brings us into connection, oneness, union. That's what yoga means, union. Well, I can't unite with something if I'm holding it at an arm's length. Whether it's another being, whether it's God, whether it's myself, you can't unite if it's an arm's length away. And this is where meditation actually takes us out of the mind. And so, if we're focused on doing, we're still in the mind. I've got to do, because if I do, I either do well or I do badly. And if I'm doing, I can always do better. And if I'm doing, there's comparison and competition. Other people do better. And if I'm doing, then I'm not actually meditating. Because as you're in the mind, and if you meditate for a while, you'll see inevitably you'll have one of those moments where you get to this very, very deep space. You're one with the breath. Then you're one with all. You're one with the universe. And then the mind comes in and goes, is this it? Is this enlightenment? Am I there? This is it. And the minute that happens, it's over. Whatever it was. The minute the mind kicks in, it's over. And this is why it's so important to realize meditation is not about doing. It's about undoing. It's about sinking out of the patterns and the ways of thought. Sinking out of roles, titles, responsibilities, identities, masks we wear. A beautiful meditation practice is as you meditate, every time you exhale, just let another one of them go. Literally, just exhale them. Another responsibility, another identity, another mask, another role. Just let them go. And slowly as we meditate, we actually sink into a space of just isness. Or amness. It's not even so much I am, but just amness or isness. So a resistance to doing is good in meditation, but allow yourself to undo. So rather than focusing on what you're going to do in meditation and then resisting that, as you sit to meditate, allow the different things that you do the rest of the time to just appear. Don't try to think about them. I guarantee you thoughts will come. And if they don't, you're very blessed. Consider yourself very lucky if you close your eyes to meditate and thoughts don't come. So just enjoy it. But they'll come. And the thoughts that will come are the thoughts directly related to that false identity, to those roles, to those masks. And then just let them go. Breathe them out. Think about meditation as a warm bath for your soul. Now I say that very specifically because when you come home at the end of a day of work, and you're tired and you're stressed and the body's aching and you decide, I'm going to take a hot bath. What do? What must you do before you get in a hot bath in order for it to be relaxing? Take your clothes off. Yes, exactly. You got to get naked. You could have the most beautiful bathtub, the most wonderful aromatherapy scents and salts from the Dead Sea. And I mean, you could have everything. But if you get into that bathtub in your suit and tie and your shoes and your hat, is the body going to go, or no? Right? Anybody think there's even a possibility of an in a bathtub in your pants and your shoes or your shirt or your dress? Of course not. So in the same way, when we go to meditate, think about it literally as you are lowering yourself. Sometimes when I lead a meditation, we focus on the Swadhisthana chakra, which is this energy center, right? Just a few inches right below the belly button. We focus on sinking down into it. And so when you meditate, literally think about, visualize rather, lowering yourself into this infinite, borderless, boundaryless ocean of warmth. That source of light, of love, of truth, and you're just being lowered into it. But along the way, you let go. The pants and the shirt and the tie and the hat and the shoes. You let go of your story. You let go of the anxieties. You let go of the attachments. You let go of the ego. You let go of the fight against the ego. You let it all go so that you can literally just merge and melt into that spacious source. So it's an undoing in meditation rather than a doing. And if you find yourself still resistant, it's okay. Do it anyway. Sometimes the false self, the ego, the identity, the story, all of that, it holds a very tight grip on us. We've dedicated our lives to it. We've built our lives around our story. I am this way because. I do this because. This is who I am. This is what I like. This is what I am like. That's just me. We create all of these identities out of the bricks of that which has happened to us, mostly in early childhood. How we've reacted to it, how we've responded to it. We create these identities out of these bricks that end up suffocating ourselves. Literally, we are building jails that become tombs in these identities that suffocate us. A brick after a brick after a brick. This is who I am. This is who I am. This is who I am. But it's strong and it's powerful, and especially if we've dedicated decades of our lives to it. But as Puja Swamiji, my guru, always says, whenever you wake up, it's morning. So don't worry how long you've been putting those bricks one on top of the other. It doesn't matter. Right now, in this moment, in this breath, right here, you can undo it, because it turns out those bricks are a figment of your imagination. Turns out you haven't actually laid them in a proper foundation in the ground with mortar and whatnot. You've just created it in your mind. And the minute that you decide that no longer is the creation I will live under as, you can disable it. But the ego is not going to be super excited about that. And the dilemma is that in this very physical skull in which sits my very physical brain, it's the home of, not the actual existence, but it's the home of, the medium through which I experience, the mind, the ego. And so every time I have a thought that says, today I'm going to annihilate my ego, well, who hears me say that? Who's sitting right there? The ego, right? So the ego's listening to me say, today is the day I'm going to become free of the ego. And the ego's like, not so fast. I don't think so. So then the ego plays these games. It's there. It knows you're planning, you're plotting. Today I'm going to do this meditation, that meditation. It's going to free me of the ego. It's ready. And it's ready with its own strategy. And that's where it's so important not to fight it, not to think of it as a battle. but actually to allow the meditation to be something that simply, literally is creating so much space, is giving you the experience of being so spacious that, yeah, there is an ego. There is a history of the body, of the brain, of the patterns, of the sanskaras. But it isn't me. And I sink into a spaciousness. Of truth. And that's what happens when we meditate. Are there any questions here? Yes. Yeah, both one, you and then you. What are mudras? So mudras are very specific movements or postures, typically with the hands, that effect very specific energetic changes in the body. They're ways of utilizing the body, but again, mostly the hands, to bring about a shift. Because here's the thing. We're actually all connected. You may think, oh, those are my fingers, those are my toes, it's actually all one. And it's all connected, and it's all talking, and it's all impacting. And this is where societies, lineages, like the Chinese, like in India, systems that we have of the energy channels of the body, that Chinese medicine is rooted in, that so much of Ayurveda is rooted in, that understands, when I push here on your foot, it treats your liver disease. When I push here on your finger, it treats this blood issue. But it's not just body mapping, it's energy channels. And the energy channels are not just relegated to my tissues and my blood and my bones or my organs. It's relegated to the energy also that is running my brain, which we interact with as my mind, my emotions, my feeling, my experience. And so the mudras are ways of delving in, ways of bringing about a change in the energetic experience of the body through the hands. Yeah. Yes.
What would you say to a yoga teacher or yoga studio owner who wants to keep the integrity of yoga that teaches in the West?
Okay, great. What would you say to a yoga teacher, yoga studio owner who wants to keep the integrity of yoga in the West? Great. There's a lot to be said. The first piece is to remember that yoga means union, which means there isn't a right style of yoga and a wrong style of yoga. When we are yoga studio owners, well, that's a business. I've got rent to pay. I've got electricity bills to pay. Assuming I've got a bathroom, I've got water bills to pay. That's very real stuff. And so what ends up happening is we end up in our well-intentioned goal of bringing in people. We end up having to sell something. I have to sell something that makes what I do different from what the guy down the street is doing. Otherwise, why will people come to my studio? And the dilemma with how most of that works is it draws lines and borders. Well, this style of yoga is better than that style of yoga because of this and that. This is the best. This is the only one. This is the real one. So while there's, of course, nothing wrong with using marketing and whatever you need to do to attract people, to be a magnet, to be the light that draws people to you, it's important to not use, that's okay, no problem, to not use the temptation of distinctions and differences and separations, that in the service of union, we don't want to be drawing distinctions. That's piece one. Piece two is it's really important to realize that that union of which yoga speaks, at its core, is not just about, as we always say, our nose to our knees or our fingers to our toes. Deepest spiritual meaning. It's a union of the self to the divine. The Bhagavad Gita, my favorite topic, is 700 verses on yoga. It's a treatise on yoga. He doesn't teach one asana. In fact, the only time that asana is mentioned, it actually refers to that thing that you sit on rather than the posture that you're in. He gives a few lines about the asana. It should be not too thick, not too thin, not too hard, not too soft. And in fact, he then says very beautifully, after describing the asana, what it should be made of, now that you are established in asana, now that you are established here on my asana, you are ready to begin the practice of yoga. Which, should we ever have had any doubt about whether asana is yoga or not, that clarifies it. Once you are established in asana, you are ready to begin the practice of yoga. Clearly, they're two different things. Asana is an essential part, but it's not the fullness of yoga. And in that union, there's a lot that we are called upon to do. The 8 limbs of yoga that Patanjali gave. Well, asana is limb number 3. So let's go back to bricks for a moment. If I were building a house or a building, could you start on the 3rd floor? Could I build the 3rd floor first? Right, what would happen? Yeah, it would collapse. Without a foundation, nothing lasts. Well, the foundation of yoga, the limb 1 and 2, are what are called the yamas and the niyamas, which is how we live. Has nothing to do with your thighs or your hamstrings or your spine or your waist. It's things like non-violence, truthfulness, non-stealing, non-hoarding, integrity in my relationships, purity. I mean, there's 10 of them. So if we are teaching yoga or running a studio of yoga, it's not yoga if it doesn't have a foundation and a rooting and a grounding in the yamas and the niyamas. And that goes very deep because, for example, truthfulness is not, sadly, simply the opposite of lying. The simple fact that I haven't told you a lie does not necessarily mean I'm being truthful. Truth, capital T, truth, is who we are. Which means that we have to be rooted in the exploration of, the awareness of, the touching of, the awakening of who we are. But it also has to do with how we move through the world. So the very first one is ahimsa, nonviolence. Well, again, that doesn't just mean if I refrain from walking into my yoga studio with a gun and killing everybody, I'm nonviolent. There's violence in how we live. There's violence in how we eat. There's violence in how we shop. There's violence in what we buy. Every single time, my sole agenda is more, cheaper, cheaper, cheaper. Well, that's violent. It's violent to women and children in sweatshops who are there because I need more, cheaper, cheaper, cheaper. It's violent to the earth because the factories then that are cutting corners are dumping their waste into our soil, into our water, into our air. So there's a lot of real deep work that's exciting. And it's an opportunity not to feel overwhelmed, but it's an opportunity to realize, wow, yoga is what I do 24 hours a day, who I am 24 hours a day. In this studio of yoga, we give you not just that for your hamstrings and your thighs and your waist, but we give you that for you, so that when you walk out of here, you walk out of here a completely different way than you walked in. But the tree of yoga doesn't end on the 3rd floor either. It goes all the way up to 8. So it's also, just as it's important not to begin with asana, it's important not to end with asana. And I won't go through all the 8 limbs of yoga here, but the 8th limb is samadhi. That ecstatic bliss, union, oneness with the divine, which also means that as we're teaching, there has to be an awareness, an acknowledgement of the fact that ultimately that's where we're going. And okay, it's not that Trikonasana is necessarily going to get you there today, right here, immediately. But it's about the awareness that getting your hand down on the floor in Trikonasana is the means to an end when you are established in asana. You are ready to begin the practice of yoga. So it's not, I touched my toes, I'm done. It's, I am established in Uttanasana. Now I am ready to begin the practice of yoga. So if you can do that, even as an attempt, even as an intention, that intention will inform and impact and affect every decision you make, everything you teach, everyone you hire. And it'll be not only doing well, but doing good. Yeah.
I just want to ask you one thing. Is supposedly the meditation is the meditation the function of healthy body and mind? Because again, last time also I asked you one thing is that I keep on seeing people who are who lose their consciousness maybe because of some accident or some illness, and they get admitted in the hospital. Me being a doctor, I asked you last time also, but we couldn't complete the question because we that somebody who might be practicing yoga and meditation for a long period of time and has somehow got enlightened. I don't know what exactly enlightenment means, but has had spiritual experiences which you talk about, which you've been talking about for so long. And suppose that person becomes a patient and falls ill and loses his consciousness.
Okay.
This electrolytemia, which we say that when supposedly somebody has low sodium, gets disoriented, or maybe he succumbs to some infection which is life-threatening, and he loses his consciousness and memory. So all the work which he's been doing all his life and attaining to the spirituality, to the consciousness and everything, and if he dies or loses consciousness or becomes disoriented because of the disease of the physical body, what would be the fate of that person who's been already enlightened
Okay.
and then is interrupted by a disease only?
Okay. So this is a very fun place where spirit meets matter. So we have spiritual experience, spiritual awareness, and then we have a brain injury. And as he says, what happens to the person who was enlightened, who had done all of this spiritual work, had become enlightened and become awakened? Now they have a brain injury, now they've lost consciousness. Is all of that work they've done over? Have they lost it? Because now they're disoriented, now they don't necessarily know who they are, they've had some loss of consciousness. Okay. So the brain is not that which creates consciousness, nor is it consciousness, but it is the medium through which we interact with our consciousness. Now, when I use the word consciousness here, I don't mean the consciousness as in the medical sense of you are conscious or not, as in like you're in a coma or you're not in a coma. I mean the spiritual definition of consciousness. The brain is absolutely in charge of whether you are in a coma or not in a coma. But the spiritual consciousness that we have, the brain is the medium through which I interact with it. So when my brain is functioning well, I am able to sit down and meditate and bring my awareness to my breath and chant my mantra and have an experience of light, of love, of truth, of expansion, of oneness, of whatever it may be. I'm able then to stand up from my meditation and move through the world with that awareness. Okay, now brain injury comes. Now I am either unconscious, literally in the medical sense, or I've just had such a traumatic injury that I've had a personality change, or whatever it is that's happened in all the examples. That's only a change in my physical brain. It's only a change in my ability to interact with consciousness. It's not a change in the presence of that consciousness. So for example, the sun is shining. My windows are open, my curtains are open. I'm experiencing the sun. Now something happens and suddenly my curtains close. Well, the sun is still there. I just have lost at this moment my ability to interact with the presence of the sun because these curtains have come down. But it doesn't change the presence of the sun. All it has changed is my ability to interact with that. So for example, in my life, I witnessed a woman very, very close to us suffer from Alzheimer's disease. And as she suffered from Alzheimer's disease, I watched her forget forget much of her family in completely different ways. Whereas she had loved, and had loved very deeply. Now, did that love, that deep, I don't mean the attachment, I don't mean the relationship, but the actual presence of love, did it disappear on some dendrites and glial cells? Of course not. Because it doesn't exist there. If it disappeared because some of the cells in my brain were degenerating, it would have had to imply that it actually existed there, which it didn't. But the connection of those cells enabled her to interact with that, to remember it. That no longer is there. But it doesn't mean that the energetic, spiritual presence of love isn't there. The work that's done to wake up, that consciousness that we've touched, that's with us. Because look, when you go from one life to another life, let's shift for a moment from being unconscious in the brain to literally being physically dead. When you shift from one body to another body, along with the soul, the subtle body goes, right? Man, buddhi, ahankar, travels with the soul. Now, that is where that spiritual work that I have done, it's not sitting in my blood cells somewhere. My awareness, my consciousness, my awakening, my enlightenment, my truth, my presence as love, not my love of you because you bring me flowers, but just that experience, that presence, that transmitter of love. That's not taking place in some cell someplace. That's me connecting with me. That self meets self. That's oneness. That doesn't exist physically someplace. When you die, the sadhana that you've done, the spiritual practice that you've done, that's why when we speak about the law of karma and rebirth, you're carrying that with you into your next life. Well, even if you weren't brain dead before you died, you're certainly brain dead after you die. So if you needed the brain to be healthy to benefit from your spiritual experience, it wouldn't go with you into the next life. So no, you don't lose it. No, the brain is not where it is held and stored. On the other hand, the brain does change as we have spiritual experiences. When you meditate, it literally changes your brain. They've done enough extraordinarily exciting mapping of, monks meditating. So we know what happens in the brain, A, while we're meditating, and B, long-term changes. But those long-term changes are things that lead to me being better able to navigate my way through the world in oneness, in love, in compassion, in simple things like patience, foresight, understanding, broad vision. That's where the brain comes in and plays that role. But consciousness is not of the brain. Yeah, you're right. We need it to interact with consciousness. When I'm brain dead, I'm no longer conscious of being conscious. But it hasn't taken away who I really am, that which I've touched, that way I've expanded. Because that's energy. not just electrical signals in my brain, but actual energy between me and the world. That's energy of soul, energy of spirit. And that doesn't rely on the brain.
And what is that something which never dies and remains after when we are dead? What is the experience after? Nobody can say that, but then I want to ask you about what is the actual experience when we die? I mean, when a living being dies, what now it carries with it? I mean, what remains and what goes off? The body goes off, but what remains?
So there's a lot of philosophy and science, spiritual science, around death, what goes. But here's the thing, as you so rightly say, nobody can say what it's like, because by sheer fact that we're sitting here, it means we're not dead. What we do know is that, of course, the soul doesn't die. Again, given to us in scriptures, given to us by sages and saints and rishis and the awakened ones. But you don't even need to hear it from them. What dies is the body. As you have lived your life, have you ever had experiences of beyond the body? Now, I don't mean experiences where you're necessarily floating on a roof looking down on yourself, but I mean an experience of connecting to, within yourself, another being, a tree, a sunset, God, that isn't about the body. Have you ever had one of those? So you've touched it. You don't need me to describe it. You've touched that part of you that is not the physical body. But what's more important than any of that is how we live. Because how we live determines how we die. While we're still here, use every minute and every moment. So many of us are dead while we're still in our bodies. We've still got our bodies. Bodies are healthy. Bodies are strong. But lives are over. Lives are stuck. Lives are in jail. We literally keep building these brick tombs of what I want, how I want it, when I want it, who I want it from, how it should be, what I think, why I'm right. We keep constructing that. Rather than worrying so much about what happens after you die, worry more about making sure you don't die while you're still alive. And in every moment, be conscious. Because if I'm not conscious, I might as well be dead. I'm not here. I'm not living. Body's moving. I'm on autopilot. But I, in the truth, the fullness of who I am, and the purpose that I'm here for, I'm not living. I'm not experiencing. I'm not in this moment, in this breath. If you are in yesterday or tomorrow or an hour ago or dinner, you're not living. Because you can only live right here, right now. You can't live yesterday or tomorrow. Your only option to live is right here, right now, in this breath. So focus on actually living. And focus on every moment. How much of an experience of living can you have in every moment? On every level. Taking you deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Connecting you more and more and more and more with the creation. Being that drop coming back to the ocean every moment. Don't worry so much about after death. We do know one thing for sure, which is whatever is supposed to happen is going to happen. But right here, right now, that's what you've got in your control. Focus on that. With the awareness that the truth of who I am, the soul, the spirit, the consciousness, the love, the truth, it's eternal. And the way that you know it's eternal, lastly, is look, think about it scientifically. If it were dependent upon the body, it would have to exist somewhere in the body. Okay? So, love, consciousness, truth. Where does it exist? It's not a physical location. Again, brain helps us interact with that, but it's not sitting there in a specific lobe of the brain. Oh, that's my love lobe. It's not housing it there. And as your body keeps changing throughout your life, the consciousness stays. As the cells of your body keep sloughing off and regenerating, consciousness stays. If your consciousness existed in your cells every time, you left your cells behind on the chair you were sitting on, you'd leave some of yourself behind. But what we do know is that that self interacts with it. And so even though I'm continuous and continual, all of these cells, all of the physical aspects of who I am, are also full of who I am. Such that this entire being, it's not body and soul, or body and heart. It's this intersecting, interactive experience in which some of it is eternal, some of it is sloughing off as I talk to you right now, but the I is consistent. That consciousness is consistent. And that's true even after death, in terms of the consciousness of the soul, the consciousness of spirit, the consciousness of that I. That stays with you, I think. Yeah, of course. Yes.
I want to know, how do we know what is our purpose of life?
So, and we're going to have to take this as the last question tonight, and I apologize to the other hands that were raised, but we all actually have the same purpose in life. Every one of us. By sheer fact that we have a human birth, our purpose in life is to wake up. Our purpose in life is to realize the truth of who we are. Now, this is coming from the scriptures into today, meaning even from thousands of years ago when the scriptures were given to us. It's written that the human birth, the reason it is seen as the pinnacle of evolution, spiritual evolution, not just physical evolution, is because it's only in the human birth that we can be conscious of being conscious. Lots of nature acts a lot better than we do. We are certainly not the pinnacle of evolution in a lot of ways. But because we believe we are the only species that can actually be conscious of being conscious, it means we're the only species that has that ability to realize, oh wait, I'm not the body. Oh wait, I don't actually end here and you begin over there and there's empty space between us. Actually, we are one. Actually, that's me in there and you in here. And us in here. And so our purpose, if you are here in a human body, your purpose is to wake up, to realize, not just intellectually, not just you read it in a book or heard it somewhere, but actually to realize in your experience the truth of who you are. To really know that who you are is infinite, that who you are is boundless, that who you are is soul, is spirit, is love. And you have a body. And the body is exquisite and wonderful and beautiful and an amazing tool we've been given to interact with the beauty of creation. The smells, the sights, the sounds, the touches. Clearly, sunsets have been given to us as so beautiful, to use our eyes to interact with them and to love them. Clearly, music sounds so good because we've been given these ears to interact with it. Spirituality is not about pushing away the senses. It's about pushing away or becoming free of being a slave to the senses. If I'm free of the pull of them, then I actually am able to use them to experience this exquisite, amazing, wonderful creation that God has given us, this gift. Imagine you give somebody a gift, and then you go to their house, and they say, "Oh, I loved your gift so much. It's the most precious gift I've ever gotten. Look here, it's in this corner of my closet back here. See, under all my sweaters and jackets, and in the back corner of it. See, that's what you gave me, see?" Would you be happy? Like, no, you give somebody something, you want them to use it, to have it with them. Or if someone says, "I loved that gift you gave me so much, I have totally forgotten you gave it to me. I've worked really hard to forget you ever gave it to me." Would you be happy? Now you think God has given us this extraordinary body, extraordinary creation, with sunsets and flowers and music and water that tastes so good, even a cup of hot tea that tastes so good. Really, just for us? To pretend we were never given it? To hide it and push it away and learn to not have it, not use it? Of course not. But to realize we aren't it. That it's been given to us as a gift to interact with the divine, to see a sunset and go, wow. It's like, do you have kids? Okay. So imagine that your kids, when they were young, made you drawings or paintings. Now, typically, when 2 and 3 and 4-year-olds make paintings and drawings, they're not so good by an objective eye. But as parents, we love them, right? We tape them up all over. My kid made that. Well, when you look at that scribble and your heart fills with love, it fills with love not because it's such an extraordinary piece of art, but because you love the one who painted it. See, there you go. In her bag, in Rishikesh, scribble by the kids, right? So, because you see it and it fills you with love, because you love the creator of it. So when we see the sunset, when we drink the water, when we hug the tree, when we hear the music, when we smell the flower, it's this opportunity to use the senses to remember God, to remember the Creator, to remember who we are. And so all of this has been given to us as tools to wake up, not tools to become slaves. we have gone the other way. We've taken our senses and we've become a slave to them. Gotta have it, gotta have it, gotta have it. I need it, I need it. There's a pull, there's a hunger, there's a thirst, there's a desire, there's a this. So we become slaves. That's not what it was given to us for. It was given to us to help us connect with, interact with, remember the divine. So your purpose is to wake up. Your purpose is to experience the truth of who you are that is unbounded, that is infinite, that was never born, that will never die. To know that. And simultaneously, to love the creation with all of its foibles, with all of its problems. If we went around the room, we could all share about the different challenges and problems that our particular incarnation story has had. But to love it anyway. Because it is through that we are here waking up. Everything that is given to you is given to you so that you can wake up. That's how this karma and destiny, it intersects so that what you're getting today is both a product of what you've done and is given to you in exactly the way, not as a reward or a punishment, but in exactly what you need to take your next step closer to God, to peel back your next layer. For some people, it's going to happen in poverty. For other people, it's going to happen in wealth. For some people, it's going to happen in failure. For others, it'll happen in success. For some, it's going to happen surrounded by people. For some, it's going to happen alone. It's not a reward or a punishment. Oh, you must have been good in a past life. That's why you're rich. No. The situation that you are in is exactly the most conducive situation with your karmic package for you to wake up. So use it and wake up. And along the way, you're going to also have these duties and these dharmas, and they'll change. You've got dharma and duty when you're young to your parents as a student. As you shift, as you become a wife, a mother, a daughter-in-law, a this, a that, you've got duties to that. You've got different dharmas for that. And so we fulfill them. And that's that exquisiteness of life. And this again, with the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna just gives it so perfectly. It's this very amazing back and forth between, oh Arjun, stand up, pick up the bow, string it, fight this battle. And oh Arjun, you are not the stringer of the bow. You are not the body. You were never born. You will never die. Those in front of you were never born. They will never die. Oh Arjun, aim the arrow this way. Oh Arjun, remember, you are not the doer. Oh Arjun, and just back and forth. Fight the war, fight it well, fight it sincerely, fight it fully. No, you don't get to run away. No, you don't get to take a break. No, you don't get to choose a different dharma. And you're not the fighter. You're not the doer. You were never born, you never died. This entire thing is a drama. And do it well. And do it sincerely. And do it fully. Single-pointed focus. And remember, you're not the doer. And if you can really really hold both of those at the same time. Whatever I'm doing, fully, sincerely, completely, and I'm not the doer. That's your purpose. And then you use whatever you have as a tool in the hands of God. That's what it's all been given to us for. When we say Nimitra Matram, right? That tool, that instrument in the hands of the divine. Our bodies, our minds, our skills, our abilities, our time, it's all an instrument in God's hands. So whoever you are, whatever you can do, whatever you know, realize you're an instrument. And in order for an instrument to work, it has to be clear, right? This mic, well, this isn't as good an example, but the regular mic, the mic he has, normal mic, it could be the most expensive microphone in the world. It could be covered with diamonds and gold. But if it's waterlogged or full of dirt, it's not going to work. And so more important than the diamonds or the gold is to make sure that it's a clear vessel, a clear vehicle for that divine to flow through. So empty yourself and realize that you're full.